It's a pleasure to be here to address all of you on the work that the Agastya Foundation has been doing in experiential learning in India. And I'd like to start by saying that, back in the late 1990s, I think it was 1998, I was living in the UK, in London, working as a banker, when I read a very interesting story in the Indian newspapers about a village boy. I read this very interesting story about a village boy in India in whose village all the cows were dying. And no one understood this mysterious disease. Why were the cows dying? And this boy who was tending to one cow watched that cow, the only cow that was alive in the village, eating from a pile of garbage. And suddenly he had a thought. He thought, is there something in the garbage that the cow is eating that's giving it immunity? So he went and got a sample of the garbage, went to his school teacher, and they did some analysis and came out with a science project. And they found some chemical or combination that was giving the cow immunity against the disease. And I remember thinking, now that is innovation, that is creativity, that is real learning. And I thought, wouldn't it be wonderful if all the schools in India and all the children, whether they're rural or urban or rich and poor, would learn to learn like this boy had demonstrated. That was back in 1998. Now let's fast forward about 18 years later. A young girl called Maunika, another village girl, who had come to our campus near Bangalore many times to learn, had graduated now from college, and she came and gave a talk to all our managers. And Maunika, she said she was a hopeless student. Her grades were really low, very, very low. And her father was very disappointed, and he had decided that he would get her married off as soon as possible. And this was frightening to Maunika, because the last thing she wanted was to get married at a very young age. But her father was determined, because he said, "You're absolutely useless." So one day, as luck would have it, a friend of Maunika's said, "Come with me to the Agastya campus," and she came rather reluctantly. And at the campus, again as luck would have it, the teacher looked at her and said, "Hey, you seem to be a new student here. Come here and show me your finger." So she showed the teacher her little finger. And he took a needle and pricked it. And Maunika literally went, "Ah!" because she felt the pain. And it was very unexpected. And he took her blood sample and afterwards told her her blood group. Now, as Maunika narrated it, she was absolutely astonished. She had no idea about her blood group. It was her blood. She had felt the pain. And all of a sudden she felt, there is a whole world of knowledge out there that I wasn't aware of. And after this incident, she began to take a lot of interest in her studies. And slowly her grades began to go up. So she went back to her father and said, "Look, I'm doing better at school. Will you postpone my wedding, my marriage?" And the father said, "No, not really." So finally she persuaded him by saying, "Look, if I come first in school, will you postpone my marriage?" And he didn't think she would come first in school, and he said, "Okay." But guess what? She came first in school. She got into SV University, a very good university in Chittoor district, and became the leader of 3,000 children, students, and graduated with a BSc Tech degree, and came and gave us a talk about her transformation which started from that pinprick moment. Now, I narrated this story to a whole bunch of people who had come to our campus one day, Maunika's story. And the chief guest was a famous Indian scientist called Dr. Mashelkar. And Dr. Mashelkar was really riveted by this story. So when his turn came to speak, he narrated his story. And he said, when I was a young boy, I was brought up by a mother who had not gone beyond the 3rd grade at school. I didn't even have money to wear chappals. I was an okay student, and one day my teacher called me and said, Ramesh, come here, hold this piece of paper against the sun, which I did. And guess what? He put a convex lens between the sun and the paper, and voila, I saw the sun burning a hole through the paper. And Mashelkar said, that was my epiphany. I suddenly realized, my God, there is really something interesting going on out here, and there's a whole lot of knowledge. So I need to find out what this is all about. And Mashelkar was motivated, began to do well in school, and we all know the story. He graduated from school, went to college, ended up doing a master's degree, a PhD, got about 40 honorary doctorates, became the Fellow of the Royal Society, the Director General of the Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, and the rest is history. And it all started from that experience of the sun burning a hole through the paper. And Mashelkar, being Mashelkar, said, I also got another insight, and that was the rays of the sun travel in parallel lines. Light travels in parallel lines. But if you focused it, you create enormous energy. So the lesson to me was, if you focus on whatever you're doing, you can create enormous energy and burn through any obstacle. So these stories of the village boy, of Maunika, the village girl, and her pinprick moment, and of Ramesh Mashelkar becoming the great scientist, what do these stories tell you? I think they tell you the importance of curiosity, the magic of wonder, and the power of passion, staying with a problem till you've cracked it. When they had their tricentennial for Isaac Newton many years ago, the famous economist John Maynard Keynes was asked to write the eulogy. And he said that the one quality that distinguished Newton from all his peers was what he called his continuous, concentrated introspection. That is, his ability to keep a problem in his mind for weeks on end till he saw through it, till he cracked it. So that's the passion, that's the energy that is really important in learning. And in fact, in India, a number of our great rishis, a number of our great scientists of old would hold a thought or an idea not just for a few weeks, but for their entire lives, entire lifespan. Imagine the amount of energy that requires. So today, the Agastya Foundation, we have about 200 mobile science vans, 100 labs on motorbikes, 100 science centers. We operate in a few hundred villages where we run night village schools. And we have a 170-acre campus in a place called Gudivanka, which is 2.5 hours by road from here. A beautiful campus with many, many experiential learning centers. And we are a team of about 1,300 people working in 21 states across the country, reaching over 1.5 million children face to face in very powerful experiential ways every year, as well as tens of thousands of teachers. So the question is, how did we get here? So when I was in London and I read that story, I had been dreaming for many years, in fact since I was a schoolboy. I had a dream of creating a school in the foothills of the Himalayas that would nurture creativity. I might have got this idea from a book I read called Shangri-La. So I just thought that would be a nice thing to do, a very enjoyable thing to do. Lovely school set in a valley, cool air, views of the Himalayas, children learning in a very creative, experiential way. So as I got older in the late 1990s, I began to think, how can I make this dream come true? So I decided to quit my job and come back to India. And at that time, I gathered a group of people around me to advise me because I had no experience in education. I was a banker. I had studied economics, MBA, and stuff like that. Very little knowledge of advanced science. So I met up with Dr. P.K. Iyengar, who had retired as the chairman of the Atomic Energy Commission. And Dr. Iyengar was fascinated by my dream, and he said, you know, Ramji, what is missing in India is what he called cause-effect thinking. We don't seem to understand the consequences of our actions. And because of this, we're not good problem solvers. We're not innovating. We're not creating enough. So if we can address this gap in learning and education at the foundational level, then I think we'll make a big difference. And he described to me how India made the atom bomb. And he said, you know, the challenge always was that when we hired these students from the engineering institutes and science graduates and so on, while they had book knowledge, most of them didn't have a creative bent of mind. They didn't have the ability to apply their knowledge to solve problems, to innovate and to create new things. So we had to remold them to be able to do that. And obviously they succeeded in doing that. But he said it was a huge challenge. So we asked the question, how come? Why is it that a country that invented the zero, algebra, calculus, way before Newton and Leibniz, made huge contributions in art, sculpture, philosophy, and so on? Why is it that a country like this, which had been so creative in the past, has it lost its mojo? How did it happen? Could it be that as a nation we are trapped in textbook views of life? We've become a nation of clerks instead of being a nation of creators. Now there might be various reasons for this, colonization and so on and so forth. But the reality was that at that time, probably is to a much lesser extent today. So in fact, you know, C.V. Raman used to say, throw the textbook out of the window. You know, we all know the story of C.V. Raman standing on the deck of the ship on the Red Sea and asking the question, why is the sea blue? And so there was an observation and there was a question. And people said, well, the sea is blue because we know the sky is blue and the sea reflects the sky. But Raman said, no, something else is happening here. And he went and with about 200 rupees worth of equipment discovered the Raman effect and won a Nobel Prize. All from observing and seeing and questioning. So we got a group of people together, Iyengar, myself, some college students, school students, professors from the Indian Institute of Science. And the question I posed to the group was, what makes you creative or innovative or a great problem solver? Is it something in your genes? You're born that way. Or is it a skill that can be learned and nurtured and learned? And what are the qualities that define a creative person? So using examples from science, like the one I gave you about C.V. Raman, and from the arts and so on, we came up with a kind of rough, if you like, model. We said, look, creative people, good problem solvers are great observers. Think of that boy in the village who observed that the cow was not dying because it might have been getting immunity from the garbage it was eating. That was great observation. No one else made that observation. So, creative people are great observers. They don't just see, they go beyond that. The second thing we said is there's a process of awareness in the brain, where the brain suspends or at least reduces bias and prejudice, where you observe something and see it for what it is, without putting in your own prejudice or your conclusion. The third thing we said was they tend to be great experimenters. If they see something they find interesting, they go and experiment, even without knowing what might happen. The next point was that they have this capacity to integrate, synthesize, associate different strands of information, what today people call connecting the dots, to create something new, a new idea or a new product or a new solution. So what that village boy did was he made an association which wasn't obvious between garbage and the disease. They actually seemed the opposites, so you wouldn't think they're connected. But actually he made that connection. He connected apparently unconnected dots. So we said, look, creative people and innovators and so on, they're good observers, process of deep awareness, there is experimentation, there's association. Finally, they apply their knowledge to create something of value. It's application. And we said all of this is based on the foundation of curiosity. If you're not curious, if you don't ask questions, if you don't wonder, you're not going to observe, you're not going to be aware, you're not going to experiment, and so on. So curiosity is the foundation of this. You know, in fact, Einstein famously said that he didn't have any special muscle in his brain. It was three qualities, he said. The first was curiosity, obsession, and dogged endurance. So, curiosity, we said, is the foundation. And in fact, curiosity is the most vital natural resource. Everybody is born curious. It's not something that is gifted to you, or that you have to be rich or whatever, or have some special natural resources to be curious. We're all born curious. In fact, they've done a study in the US that shows that 98% of children between the age of 2 and 4 ask questions. You know, in fact, in preschool, they estimate that a child asks about 100 questions a day. So 98% of children between the age of 2 and 4 ask questions. By the time they reach middle school, the percentage of children who ask questions falls to 54%. And by the time they graduate from high school, that percentage in the US has dropped to 25%. So from 98% to 25%. Now, I don't know about you, but I have visited a lot of schools in India, private, government, all over the country. And my sense is the percentage of children who ask questions is probably in the low single digits. There are many reasons for it, fear being a very important factor. But that is the fact. So, what we have in India is a paucity of curiosity. If there is any such thing as a curiosity coefficient, it's pretty low. So as a group in the early days in 1999, as a result of our brainstorming, we came up with a rather unique mission. We said, look, Agastya Foundation's mission must be to spark curiosity, nurture creativity, and instill confidence. That was added later. Because if you don't have confidence and self-belief, then you're not even going to get out of your chair or your bed or whatever, because you don't believe you can achieve it. So confidence is very important. And as a vision, we said we'd like to see a creative India. Think of the golden age of India or North India. One of the three factors for the success of the golden age of India was curiosity. So we said, let's dream, and let's dream big. Let's think of a creative India, an India of curious souls, an India of solution seekers, of tinkerers, of problem solvers, an India of creators. And with this, we kind of set out, persuaded the government of Andhra Pradesh to give us, to sell us 100 odd acres of barren wasteland located near Bangalore, although in Andhra Pradesh. And we said, we'll anchor our Taj Mahal of creativity on this barren wasteland. There was not even a blade of grass there. So forget about Shangri-La. This was about, almost close to a desert. And but still, it was a big deal. We had got some land. Now we had to build the buildings to educate the children and the teachers. The problem was we ran out of money. This was 2000 and the world was going through the dot-com bust. Of course, now when we look back, that's nothing compared to what we are going through today. But that was still a very significant event. So all the plans I had of raising money from NRIs came to nothing. So we did what we were good at. By then we had become very good at sitting and discussing and brainstorming ideas. So we said, look, what do we do? We've got this land. We don't have money to build the buildings for children to come and learn. So we need to do something. I had quit my job. I was living on my savings. There was no income. At the very least, I wanted some activity in my life. Phone was not ringing. So we came up with an idea. We said, how about a mobile science van? We will carry some science experiments in the van and take it around the villages. Why science experiments? Well, one of the upshots of our brainstorming was that in order to spark curiosity and nurture creativity, there are many ways you can do it. In the arts, in the sciences, in the humanities. Maybe you can do it through storytelling, many other ways, through discussion. We said we'll focus on experiential learning because we said, look, cognitive scientists tell you that the human brain on average retains in its long-term memory 5% of a lecture, 10% of what you read, 50% of what you see and hear, 70% of what you discuss with someone, 80% of what you personally experience, and over 90% of what you teach to others. So we said, look, the education system is focused on I talk, you listen, chalk and talk. There's very little hands-on experiential learning. So the gap that we should fill to achieve our mission would be to promote hands-on experiential learning. That was, if you like, our idea of the Nai Taaleem. So Iyengar said, this mobile science van is a very good idea. I got a friend in Hindustan Motors to loan us a second-hand vehicle. Iyengar got the Homi Bhabha Center for Science Education in Bombay to gift us a small trunk of a couple of hundred very low-cost, counterintuitive science experiments, made of coat hangers, balls of string and so on. We had a tractor driver on back campus. We told him, if you want to continue working with us, you have to change your job from being a tractor driver to being a science teacher. And this guy was an arts graduate. But the Homi Bhabha people said he's quite receptive and intelligent. We can train him. So they trained him, Balram. So we put Balram in this van with this trunk full of science experiments. and set him loose in the villages. And Balram went around in the villages near our campus, and a couple of weeks later I called him and said, Balram, how's it going? And he said, fantastic, fantastic. I never realized that teaching in this way, experiential, could be so interesting and fun. And the children really love it. They've never seen anything like it. At first they would run away from the van, thinking, I was a missionary or something. And then gradually when they realized that I'm here to teach, they would come back and start learning. And so it's a great hit. And in fact, I remember watching Balram teach a bunch of these kids under a tree. And I learned a lot from that, because he looked at the children and asked them, do you believe what you see? And if someone were to ask you, do you believe what you see? You would say, yes. I'm sitting here and I can see out the window some trees, some buildings, some water. Yeah, I believe there are trees and water and buildings. So the children said, yes, we believe what we see. And Balram then gave them all a piece of paper, and he rolled it into like a little telescope, and he asked them to look through it with one eye while keeping the other eye closed, which they did. And they were surprised. They said, yeah, we can see the leaves of the tree and so on. Then he said, keep the telescope on your eye, open the other eye so both eyes are open, put your hand like this next to the telescope with your little finger touching it, and tell me what you see. And suddenly the children went, because they could still see the leaves, except they were now seeing it through a hole in their hand. So suddenly there was a hole in their hand through which they could see the leaves. So they started giggling and laughing and couldn't believe it, because they didn't have a hole in their hand. So Balram said, but is there a hole in your hand? No. But you said you believe what you see. And yet you saw a hole in your hand through which you saw whatever you saw. And then he began to explain to them how that happens and how the brain gets tricked and so on. So the revelation to me was this hands-on experiential learning using very, very simple materials can be extremely powerful. It leaves an impress on your mind and memory that you will never forget. This thing I saw happened, must have been in about 2002 or 3, and I still can't forget it. In fact, I remember I went to see the famous American politician Joseph P. Kennedy Jr., who was the nephew of President John F. Kennedy, and I was trying to persuade him to write a check for Agastya Foundation. So I explained to him what we were doing. This was in Boston. And he listened with a little bit of a pained expression, and at the end of it he said, Ramji, I don't think I'm really interested in Africa, and I think all of this might be a little too sophisticated. He couldn't connect to what I was saying. So I was a little desperate because I needed to get him to write that check. So I saw a piece of paper there, I rolled it up and did the Balram trick on him. And he saw a hole through his hand and he went, I got it. All of a sudden he understood the power of the message. And he did write a check. It wasn't a huge check, but he still wrote one, which was nice of him. And it was that simple paper experiment that I'd witnessed Balram and the students doing that did it. So I said, look to Balram, this is great, keep doing what you're doing until we raise more money or come up with a better idea. And those days we used to run these science fairs whenever we could. The Homi Bhabha people would come from Bombay and help us. We would train some local village school teachers on some science experiments, and they would demonstrate these experiments during the weekends and holidays to visiting village children. And we did this in a few places. It was going on well, except in one place the teachers refused. They said, look, you're not paying us. This is a lot of work, and we need our weekends to rest and recuperate. So sorry, we can't come. Now, we had committed to doing this science fair for about 500 children. But because the word had spread in the village that we were doing this, suddenly we were told that 5,000 children planned to visit the Agastya Science Fair over the next 2 or 3 days. Now, this was a real shock because we didn't have the teachers, maybe a handful of teachers. That wasn't going to be enough to demonstrate science experiments to 5,000 children. So should we cancel the event? And the answer was no, we would lose credibility. And in the early stages of our foundation, if we lost credibility, that would be a problem. So what do? This time we were saved by 2 girls from the village in their burqas, Muslim girls. And they came up to us and said, look, you have a problem. You don't have teachers, right? Enough teachers. We said, yeah. So they said, here's an idea. Why don't you train us? These were 2 14-year-old girls to teach the experiments. And we said, really? They said, yeah, we'd love to learn. And we'll teach them. Not only that, if you need more teachers, we have over 100 friends we can bring. Now, it seemed like a crazy idea, but we said, okay, let's go for it. So we trained desperately over the weekend about 100 children, 12 to 14 years old. And on Monday, the following Monday, we opened the science fair to a few thousand children. And these children were stunned because they couldn't believe that other children like them were going to be their teachers. So not only were they stunned, they were delighted because now they didn't have to worry about not knowing the answers or worry about asking questions and so on. So all of a sudden the science fair became a peer-to-peer learning platform and it was a super hit. And we said, hey, here's a new idea. Students teaching students. This is a very, very powerful concept. And in fact, that led eventually over the next few years to Agastya's Young Instructor Leader program, where we train village children to teach other children. And these village children who teach other children, they go through a transformation. They become like Maunika, and they become like that village boy because of the confidence and the self-belief it generates when you learn to teach others. Your respect and standing in the community goes up. So the one mobile science van and the science fairs we were doing in an experiential way. And then we got somebody from the Times of India who came and wrote an article about Balram titled Kuppam's Newton Becomes Villagers' Driving Force. The government of Karnataka read about it and they were kind of intrigued. They called me and said, this mobile science van is very interesting. Can you launch it in Karnataka? So slowly we began to expand. And this was about the time that I met the famous stock market investor Rakesh Jhunjhunwala. And hearing me, he said, Ramji, I am what I am because my father allowed me to be curious when I was a kid. So I believe a lot in curiosity. I believe it's the most powerful natural resource, the fuel for success. And no one has really come and talked to me about curiosity. So I will help you. So we signed a memorandum of understanding in which he said he will help fund a lot of our foundation's expenses and help to build the campus. And the government of Karnataka said, we'd like to launch these mobile science vans across Karnataka, and for that we are willing to pay you the operating costs, but you have to buy the vans. So with Jhunjhunwala's money we were able to buy the vans, and so we got into a public-private partnership, PPP, with the government of Karnataka, and our activities began to expand. Meanwhile, an ecologist walked into our campus. He studied the barren soil and he said, it's true, this is degraded soil. But you know what? It can be transformed if you will allow me to transform it. And I said, look, I've always dreamt of an ecological preserve, but I can't pay you for it. So he said, I'm not looking for money, I'm looking for something for my soul. So I let him do it, Yellappa Reddy, and over the years he brought a number of ecologists. And that campus, which was barren wasteland, last year the government of Andhra Pradesh gave us the State Green Award for the ecological restoration of the campus. It's become a medicinal park where children from both government, private schools, teachers, anybody interested in ecology and the environment come and learn a lot in the open air ecology lab. With the mobile lab, we said let's have small science centers so that we have what we call a hub and spoke strategy. The science centers has a whole bunch of experiments. People can come and sit there and make things, experiment, do things, projects and so on. And those who can't reach there, we will send the mobile lab out to the remote rural areas. Today in 21 districts, states across the country. And after a while we came up with the idea of a lab on a motorcycle. And that actually won the Google Global Impact Award back in 20. So this is how the Agastya Foundation evolved. And as you get bigger and bigger as an organization, what happens is communicating the mission and vision of the organization to the person, to people across the organization is very important. Because you might have a great vision and mission, but how do you know it is actually happening? When your school teacher, when your teacher walks in, we have some 800 teachers who go around the country teaching lessons and classes. How do you know that they're actually implementing the mission? So it's very important to communicate in a way that touches people not only here, but also here in the heart. So we said, how do we communicate this mission more effectively? And we found the answer with this little top. I hope you can see it. It's a colorful top. The beauty about this top is if you keep it on a surface like this, it sits on its bottom because that's where the weight is, the center of gravity is. But if you spin it, it tips over and begins to spin on its stem, which is very counterintuitive and unexpected. And when you see something like that, you go, ah. And the ah is very important because in the ah, your mind is stimulated. Your curiosity is awakened. So when you see this happening, you wonder, how did that happen? Why does it happen? And if you investigate and experiment and try it out many times, you might find the answer or you might not. But when you do fill in the blank, you experience the famous aha effect. That's creativity, the whole process of learning through experimentation, experience, observation, awareness, association. That's creativity. So we said ah and aha are fundamental, profound ways of learning. Curiosity and creativity, ah and aha. But there's a third element. And the third element is that you must have fun doing what you're doing. Because when fun and humor actually breeds confidence, it raises your self-belief. And that's the ha-ha effect. So we said, look, take the example of the tippy top. It's called the tippy top because it tips over. It has the ah, aha, and ha-ha all in one. It's an extraordinarily powerful way of learning. So curiosity, creativity, confidence. Another way of putting it is ah, aha, ha-ha. So Agastya's mission is to disseminate the spirit of ah, aha, and ha-ha to as many children and school teachers as possible. In the early days of Agastya, we said that if we want to scale what we're doing, then we have to bring in school teachers. Unless the school teacher changes her or his way of thinking and teaching and learning, You can't have a multiplier effect across the system. So we said while we work directly with children, we must also train teachers. Now this is an insight my father gave me. He said, K.V. Raghavan, he said, look, teacher training in most countries around the world has not delivered the goods. It's either failed or has had little impact. So the question is, why is that the case? And the answer was, you might go to a training program and learn and take notes and so on and so forth, but you haven't really internalized it. It is not experiential. Right? So unless you internalize it, it doesn't become part of your habit of mind. It doesn't impact the way you actually teach and learn when you go into the classroom. And in most teacher training programs, there is very little internalization. So how do we create this internalization? And my father said he was an engineer. He used to be chairman of Engineers India Limited in Delhi. He said, look, take the example of the medical college and hospital. If you're going for a medical degree, as you study for the degree, you're taken to a hospital, you see some live patients, you do diagnosis, you might see some dead bodies, so on and so forth. You go back to the classroom and you learn. Now you can connect your learning to real life. So, in teacher training, we must adopt this medical college and hospital analogy. So the medical college and teacher training is the teacher training center. The hospital are the school labs. So we said on our campus, we will set up a center for creative teaching, and we have labs where children come. So when the teachers go through the training, by the way, our training is based on teaching teachers how to learn, how to construct knowledge themselves from first principles. So it's very hands-on and experiential. They visit all our labs and centers across the campus. But equally, let us say a teacher learns something and says, yeah, I've got it. Then we say, okay, let's bring in a bunch of children into the classroom. You teach them now. We'll take a videotape of how you teach, and let's then analyze the video, critique it, to see if you've changed the way you teach and learn. And not surprisingly, very often, you think you've learned something, but when you go and practice it, if someone takes a video and shows it to you, you say, I'm still teaching the way I used to teach. So, we have found ways of internalizing this, creating the aha, ha, ha internally in a person. That is very important, because then the attitude shifts. And this aha, ha, ha is really not only for learning science, it's for learning any subject. In fact, it's a great philosophy to live your life, to see something. You know, the famous example of 23-year-old Mohandas Gandhi, when he was thrown out of the train in Maritzburg, South Africa, and he was sitting on the platform feeling humiliated. He could have just felt humiliated, felt terrible, got back on the train and forgotten it all. But Mohandas Gandhi, being who he was, in his humiliation, he was so humiliated he didn't have the courage to go and ask for his bag back to take a sweater because it was quite chilly. He just continued feeling cold. He began to think, and he asked himself, he said, I have three choices. I can forget what happened, swallow my pride, get back on the train and continue with my life. Or you know what? Why do I need to live here? Let me go back to my own country where everyone looks like me and I won't be thrown out of a train because of the color of my skin or the shape of my nose or whatever. Or the third point is, I can refuse to accept this. I can fight it. And he decided to fight it. And because he decided to fight it, we are all here today as free citizens. hundreds of millions of us, not just in India, but around the globe, because of what this 23-year-old boy decided on that miserably cold, humiliating day on the railway platform in Maritzburg, South Africa. And Gandhi actually said that it was his most creative moment in life. And what he went through was exactly what I said earlier. He began to ask questions. Why? He began to observe his own psyche and his reactions. So he was introspecting and observing. He began to connect the dots. He realized that if he ignored this, if he didn't try and do something about it, it would just keep going on and on for everybody. And finally, application. He decided to act, do something about it. So Gandhi went through exactly the process in thinking, the aha, and ha-ha. The ha-ha for him obviously was not laughing or humor, but feeling the satisfaction that I have come to a closure on what needs to be done. That is also ha-ha. So, aha, ha-ha, whether you're Gandhi, Buddha went through the same process, or you're Maunika, the village child, or you're Ramesh Mashelkar, or that village boy in Anantapur district. These are all examples at multiple levels of how this philosophy of aha, and ha-ha can transform your life. And I believe every day we should be asking this question, each one of you, each one of us, is there any is there any aha, is there any ha-ha in my life? And if there isn't, why is that the case? Right? So we become more questioning, observing, experiential individuals. That is really the key. And that is what the education system should really be focusing on. And there are many ways of doing that. Some of the ways that Agastya is doing are ways that can be used. You know, we work with about 7,500 schools across the country. North India, we recently launched a program with the Sipla Foundation in Sikkim. We are in Jharkhand, where I grew up. We are in Chittoor district, where also I grew up in school in Rishi Valley. Delhi, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Rajasthan, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, you name it. And wherever we go, we find that children and teachers are dying for this kind of experience. I think it's a kind of experience, you know, since we talked about Gandhi, in 2005 they had a 100 Years of Einstein conference in Durban, South Africa. So I was invited to go and speak there. And after the conference was over, I expressed interest in visiting Gandhi's ashram in Phoenix. So they took me there. And the whole place had burned down. There were some riots or something, and it was burned down. And I saw an old press that Gandhi had used during his movement in South Africa. And I found it very inspiring. And I told my host, you know, to celebrate 100 years of Satyagraha, which was coming up in a couple of years, why don't we launch a mobile science van in South Africa, in Gandhi's name? And I had a few discussions. Unfortunately, I couldn't find local funders for it. But I remember telling people, trying to persuade them to help me by saying if Gandhi had been alive, he would have personally driven that van to show the power of it. That is how hands-on and experiential a man he was. So while we might or might not want to be like Mahatma Gandhi or believe we can or we can't, we can in our own ways. Whether it is I'm a school teacher, a gardener, a sweeper, or whether I'm the head of an industry, an NGO, a scientist, a doctor, we can imbibe that spirit. of ah, aha, ha, ha. So let me end my talk by saying experiential learning has been at the heart and soul of what Agastya Foundation is all about. We have created hundreds, if not thousands, of fascinating experiential science models incorporating art and design so that they become even more experiential, even more memorable, even more unforgettable. And we are doing this at scale with about 1.5 million children and about 25,000 teachers across India every year. However, this is just the beginning for us. We have gone through our first 20 years, and my dream is to create Agastya, the NGO, the non-government organization, into Agastya, the non-government movement. I want to see this become a movement. And a movement means it's not confined to an individual or an organization. A movement is by the people, for the people. So we are looking at ways in which we can incite partners, friends, people from all walks of life to embrace this philosophy, which we think is part of the Nai Talim, and transform this country, revolutionize it. And I believe that is eminently possible. We don't have to wait 100 years for it. It can be done in 10, 20 years, which in the scheme of things, many of you probably are much younger than I am. So I might or might not see it in my lifetime. I hope I will see it. But certainly you're going to see it in your lifetime. And you can make it happen if you embrace this and take it forward. So thank you, namaste, and God bless all of you.
Namaste to everybody. Namaste. So I am Krishna, working as principal for a child-centered school in Vijayawada, Andhra Pradesh. So I am here to discuss some of the child-centric methods we follow in our school. So that is what I am asked to speak about. So let me come to the point. We all know that learning by doing is good for children. There is nobody who is going to oppose this. So many educationists are discussing this for at least for the last few years. But sadly, in reality, very few are dare enough to move from profit-making traditional textbook-based learning to experiential learning. The schools are very much afraid of experimenting with experiential learning and experiential teaching. So our school is one among few to facilitate experiential learning. So I am here with you today to talk about why and how of it. Learning is a natural process in all living things. So we humans, right from birth, we learn. You can't halt learning. So what we can do is, as parents and teachers, we can facilitate the learning by providing a right environment. We can facilitate better learning environment. So children learn by experiencing physical and social environment around them. That means the things around them, the people around them, maybe the pet dog around them. So that is the environment around them that influences, that gives them experiences. So in the first place, it is home and the family members and the friends and the people coming and going. But it doesn't mean that having a good space like home and people around them can help child learn better. For example, imagine an empty room with no toys, no things around to handle. People are busy, not talking to the child, not interacting with him, and nobody is coming home. And for the sake of safety, sometimes the parents may not allow a child to take risk to handle things. You can imagine. And compared to this, imagine a small mechanic with his mechanic shop attached to his home, with a lot of tools around them, people coming and going, touching the child, asking the child so many questions, interacting, making fun of him, and then the mother allowing him to handle the things around him and in the kitchen. And you can understand now where learning opportunities exist. So it is not just having the space, having the adults around them, but how interactive are these physical things, how interactive are these social beings around, where the child gives opportunities to learn for the kid. So with all the constraints, sometimes the people may not interact with him, things may not be available. Even then, why child learns better in the first 6 years? Why? So many people say first 6 years are the half-life in the learning process. So whatever they learn in the first 6 years they all become tools for exploring better in the next part of the life. Because at home, children generally allowed to handle things around them, play with them, experiment with them. They are allowed to throw things, maybe a tumbler, maybe a bucket. They may take a stick and beat the bucket and make music out of it, and may throw water around and make soap bubbles. And playing with the things around them, they come to understand the properties of the things around, and they create their own imaginary world, and they be creative in their thoughts when they use these things, when they come to know about the properties and relationships. When they understand working of the tools, sometimes they use tools in many different ways. They find new ways to use them. They try to solve problems. They try to use, for example, a spoon to dig the ground. We see many a time they use, because he doesn't know that spoon should only be used for eating or taking things from a vessel. So they understand the relationships. I can give you an example. A child understands so many relationships. For example, one example I would like to give is he takes a steel glass and leaves from a distance on the ground and finds the sound. It makes a tick sound, for example. He increases the distance from the ground and leaves it, and then it makes tang sound. It's a louder. And he increases the distance. Maybe he gets up onto the bed and leaves a tumbler and makes much bigger sound. And then he comes to about the relationship, that the height versus the sound, the loudness. Nobody is going to teach them all this. They experiment. For example, they come to know about the conservation of mass by taking clay balls, making them into two balls, and they see two small balls, and then they put together, it makes a bigger ball, and he knows these two small balls mass together makes the big ball. Both are same. It's like 2 + 2 is 4 later. So he understands floating, sinking, or cycles in the nature. For example, when the mother starts before going to the office, she starts combing her hair, and he understands that the mother is going to office. Then he brings a relationship between these two. It's not, maybe it's very easy when you think about that small situation, but it's very difficult. The first time the child is experiencing that. So at home, there is no fixed use of the things as expected. So we don't expect for him to use the pillow as pillow. Maybe he'll play with the pillow as a ball, as a car, as a horse. And so he experiments in many different ways until he satisfies with it. So there is no restriction of the body movement. So the physical activity is the most active at home. So he experiences all that, and at home it is a stress-free environment. No restrictions, no comments, no corrections. Most of the time, some parents may correct, but most of the time we are busy with our things, and he experiments things, no corrections, no comments, and the care and love from the mother he experiences, and then he understands the value of it, and is allowed to make mistakes and correct himself. So home provides very good social environment. They interact with people coming and going, and they play with the father, mother and sister and pet animals around them, and they understand the rules to be followed when they interact with people, what is good, what is bad, how to give and take, and all that. They also pick up experiencing they pick up mother tongue without knowing that they are learning a language. No formal teaching, no corrections, no worksheets, no homeworks, nothing. But they could learn mother tongue in maximum 3 years. But you can see in the schools, the foreign language, it is taken even after 12 years. Students are making basic mistakes in language. So here we should understand how naturally the child acquires knowledge, acquires skills from surroundings. So why am I spending this much time on this topic? Because there are a lot of methods to be adopted by the teacher if she looks into what's happening at home. If they want to give experiential learning at school, they have to take what are those things at home that are helping child learn on his own, learn his best. So we by this time already know that learning happens is very natural, or not very much planned, or the activities are not closed, they are all open-ended. So if you ask me what is the most important activity that helps experiential learning, in my view it is children's play. Children's play. So play is not very simple a concept. Play is very, it has got a lot of weight in the learning process. So play facilitates, I say play facilitates experiential learning in a healthy environment. When I say healthy environment, when I say about health, here I mean the physical, mental and social well-being of the child, not mere absence of the disease. So if you want to give them a healthy experiential learning environment, it is play. The question here is, can we extend such a natural learning process to our school? Can the school what I mean is, can the school picks up something from the home, so that it also facilitates a natural environment as it is happening at school? So can we provide such physical and social environment and to the child, and also reach our academic goals? So we have academic goals too. So we have some syllabus at school. That is the main concern. And here we interact one to many at home. It's not the one child and many adults. Here one adult and many children. So it's not that easy to provide that natural environment that the child gets at home. So what we do at our school So I am asked to speak about our school, our experiments to the audience. So what we do at our school to provide such conductive natural environment to facilitate experiential learning. Let me explain you that in the short time that is available to me now, so all about our school. So in the first place, when students join in our school, in the preschool, we have duplicated the home environment. That means we brought in the home environment to our classroom. We kept all the things that they see in the kitchen, and brooms, bucket, mugs and toys. So what we have done is we have duplicated home environment. We have kept all the things that are available in the kitchen, like utensils and buckets, mugs and brooms, spoons, vessels and all that, and also some toys and books. We have let them use in everyday basis. We have cooking activities. Children come and clean their rooms with the small brooms given. They also take care of plants, and most importantly, they play a lot. They play with balls, clay, the sand and water most of the times. So in the classroom, we have filled with the tools, like again the tools like bent knives, peelers, screwdrivers, nuts and bolts, building blocks, and the material which let them explore freely without really aiming at their use. Teacher also brings in planned games, dramas, stories. They also let them speak about their experiences. They dance for the rhythm, and many more. All these are not new, but I can't stop mentioning them here. So having material and space is one thing, and how we facilitate learning is another thing. So you may have all these things at the school. Maybe you can exhibit them in the classroom, but the way you use is very important. The way you exhibit them, the way you facilitate the environment is very, very, very important. So I will take one example and try to let you understand this. Whenever you take an activity, whenever you plan an activity, we should let children develop holistically. We should not fragment the activity and aim at particular skill or particular knowledge component. Let it be holistic. What I mean holistic? We should plan activities. Let me take one example. What we have done. So we have a kitchen activity. Why we have taken a kitchen activity, you will come to know after a few minutes. So we asked children so what they like to do, what type of kitchen activity they like to do in the next week. So after talking to them, we asked them to bring seeds. So children brought seeds, and we all together planted them in our ground. So they started growing plants every day. They watered them. So they used to take small buckets of water and mugs. They all together enjoy pouring water to the plants. And once the crop is ready, after 1 or 2 weeks, they also we plan an activity, and we ask children to bring vegetables and material like salt and oil from their home. So teacher then organizes cooking activity with the help of all the students. Here they help teacher in cutting, peeling, grinding, in many other ways, maybe arranging things. And finally they all made a curry and shared among themselves, and also shared with me and other teachers. We all enjoyed a lot. So after the activity is over, they go on enacting the activity for one more week. So though they may not have things with them, maybe the vegetables in front of them is not there. Even then, they act as if there are vegetables. They act as if they're cutting. They act as if they are cooking. So such activity, such enacting goes on for 1 week. So what is happening in this process? Why should I say that it is a very holistic activity? Because what is holistic education? So it provides physical development. It provides environment to be creative. It helps develop skills. It also lets them be emotionally balanced, and it also brings in socializing with other children. They learn how to be in groups, follow rules, how to share and care. Everything is in it. And not only that, while making this, they learned the vocabulary like cutting, peeling, then cleaning, oil. So much vocabulary comes in. Then, and especially it's like a play. It gives them joy. So then they come to know about all these things. They experience all these things without knowing that they are involved in a learning activity. So that is how I think the teacher should plan. Maybe I think in my childhood I played with toys, marriage between two toys. So that can be a very nice activity, like making two toys and then painting them, and then making things required for the marriage and arranging them, and then conducting marriage, and then sharing sweets or whatever gifts to the people around. This can be a very nice activity in the pre-primary classes. They enjoy a lot this, because they enjoyed a lot. When I ask them, they start expressing. They start expressing in their language, and they practice language better. So if teachers should try to bring in the teacher should try to bring in as many experiences as possible in activity. That activity is going to be the best. Similarly, so that is what one examples. We cannot spend more time here at the pre-primary level. So when you move on to primary level in our school, you will find subject environments for the children. I mean subject rooms. They do not have to stay in one room throughout the day. Based on their timetable, they move to different rooms. Teacher stays stationary and children move. So why? It breaks monotony. And we keep the material that are required to teach that particular subject in those rooms. So science room will have all the science equipment, and language room will have books, classroom library, toys, display boards, flashcards, a tape recorder, maybe a puppetry screen, and so many other things. So each environment, in each room, the environment facilitates children to learn concepts of the subject. So let me take up few examples in each of the environments. Suppose if you go to science environment, you will find magnifying glass, jars, craft materials, and maybe flashcards, books, threads, seeds, such things. So here we always start our lesson with a project work or a collection of the data. So because they have to go and collect experience and bring some material to the class, their home, maybe they have something to say about the topic. Maybe their parents can help them. Maybe they can go around and fetch the information. So then when they come to the classroom, the teacher makes them sit and then discuss what they know about the topic, or each one share their experiences. Then the teacher starts the concept. And most of the time we will try to have hands-on activity or an experiment or a project in the classroom. I will take one example here. We have the one lesson in one of the 5th class, the cultivation of paddy. So here what the students did, they brought the seeds and they planted them. They started watering every day. It took 4.5 months to get the crop. So they collected again the seeds, they kept in a box, and every day they went to the crop and tried to find out what changes are happening. So they also made a booklet on it. So here there is no what I say is no involvement of the teacher really. Teacher is a facilitator. Just she asks them to bring seeds, plant them, and observe every day, write down what are the changes happening, and conclude. And they found the seeds. At the end again, they crop, and they were so happy to be farmers. So that day, at the end of this activity, they called me to the classroom, showed me the seeds in the box. So it fell down. So they were so angry at me. I understood why they are angry. They are angry because it took 4.5 months to get those box of seeds. Now in this activity I loved a lot, because now they know, when they see a bag of rice, how much efforts the farmers put in to grow this 100 kgs of rice. They don't throw they don't waste while eating. I don't think they throw the rice out, because they know now the value of growing seeds. So the efforts that farmers put in growing those seeds, because they are experienced. So here the value is added, not just observing, not just growing, not the skills, but the one more value is added. The value added is the respecting the farmer. So similarly, when you move on to a math environment, you will find all real life situations around. So we have one shop in the classroom with a lot of fake money, coins, then this bathroom scale, weighing machines, jars, tapes, and a lot of games and teaching learning material around. Apart from this, to connect the math with the real life, we have kept catalogs, calendars, railway timetables, current bills, petrol bills, such things, and menu cards, hotel menu cards. We even have the Raitu Bazaar, we call the market, vegetable market in Andhra Pradesh is called Raitu Bazaar. So we downloaded the the cost of the vegetables, and the price of the vegetables on particular day, and gave them to work out the mathematics with it. So we have activities like hotel in the classroom. We give them menu cards. They enact as if they are going to order something. They order maybe 5 idlis, 2 chapatis and all, and they look at the menu card and they calculate and then give it to the teacher. And that's how the working of mathematics is seen in the classroom. Sometimes they also have a shop, we call Santa. So we organize shop activity in the classroom, uh, the students prepare the list of things to be bought, and then go to the shop and see their the cost of the things, and then calculate how much is to be paid. So if he has 100 rupees, how much change is he going to get from the shopkeeper? So the shopkeeper and buyers, all these are the children, and the teacher involves whenever her presence is required, whenever her help is required. So here what we do in general is we keep the concepts that are given by the government in mind, like two-digit addition or single-digit addition or multiplication, and then try to find where this can be used, where this child finds the application of it in his surroundings and in his real life. So we write down maybe Dobi, how much is to be paid to Dobi, how much it is paid to shopkeeper when they go to mall, when they go to hotel, when they go to petrol bunk. So there we apply these expected learning outcomes. So that is how we design. So what is happening in the class and what is happening at home and in their surroundings or in the shop outside, all are the same. There is no disconnection between what's happening in the school and what's happening in his surroundings. So when it comes to language environment, it's the most important thing is we give a lot of importance to the mother tongue. It's like Telugu in our region. So we give a lot of importance to mother tongue because that's where they can experiment with the language like anything. They feel free to use their expression. So we should not curtail their expression. So we give a lot of importance to be free with the language usage. So we have apart from textbook. So in general, textbook is written by somebody who gives 10 or 12 lessons as a syllabus. But to teach language, we don't need the textbook. We have so many other things, so many books, so many storybooks, so much material around to teach them. So we categorized into fiction, non-fiction, and we take stories, dramas, puppetry scripts, letter writing, diary writing, writing a review about a book, or if they cook, the steps involved in cooking, and interviews, story writing, novel writing. So many activities we design in the language environment. So they really do wonderful work. I surely say that teachers are less creative than children when it comes to this creative work. And one very important thing we adopted is we stopped correcting their creative work. If they write a story, we don't correct. If they write a script for puppetry, we don't correct. If they write diary, we don't correct. Who are we to correct their creative work? You may ask, how do they learn sentence formation and spellings and all? So we do that separately. But when it comes to their creative expression, we don't correct them. So they express freely. They have no fear of expression. Otherwise, instead of saying extraordinary, they say very good. So we are stopping them to write extraordinary word in the writing activity, and by saying that I am going to correct your spellings. So he skips it and writes very good, because very good is demands less spelling skills. Apart from all this, we have craft and art rooms which allows them to express them non-verbally. So some people who do not express freely in verbal language, they express better in their craft and artworks. So if you allow them to express in different forms with a clay or paper or a puppet or a painting, so we are catering their needs of expression. So his need to express is being satisfied. So we have a lot of activities in our crafts like carving, weaving, tailoring, paper mache, pop-up card making, making things with clay, and sometimes they use plaster of Paris too. So, and in all these activities, we don't expect a particular outcome. The activity is not fixed, they are not closed. It's open-ended activity. We have mostly all the activities open-ended. So we do have SCPW work. Our children made folders. Our children did mason work. They made benches in the ground. You can find benches in our school, cement benches in the ground in our school, constructed by our children. They did carpentry work. They made all display boards and some one table and repair works. And they do have plantation work. They daily work in the ground. They broom. They arrange books in the library. They also make things for their all cultural activities and make invitation cards or gifts for the guests coming to the school. So apart from this, we also have Meet the Guest program where we call guests from outside. They share their experiences. They come from different fields of work, so they come to know about the larger world. So by interact with them, they pick up a lot of things. So I told you, not just physical environment, social environment, the interaction with the people coming is also very important. That is also comes under experiential learning. So we also have festivals organized in the school, all festivals, Hindu, Muslim, Christian festivals. And our children organize an activity called Eruka to bring in awareness on one particular topic. For example, environmental pollution, how it affects our health, or seasonal diseases. So in this activity, we call the people surrounding our school and explain them, and we elevate their awareness. So, and finally, so I would like to conclude this because it has been a long time. Finally, we have cultural activity at the end called Sandadi. It is culmination of all the academic and extra co-curricular activities. All the students participate on the stage. It is, in general, people call it annual day, but we call it as Sandadi. That means in Telugu it's Hangama. So there, right from planning, and making things required, the props, the background, and then how to execute it, and the practice and background music, all that is taken up by the children. Teachers were involved very, 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 very less number of times, as less as possible. We have adopted one strategy, that whatever we want on that cultural activity day, so we should make. We should not buy from outside. So they made to organize Japanese umbrella dance. They made umbrellas. So here is no facility is there to show all this, but you can find all these activities, what I am saying, on Krishna Abhyas Vidya Facebook page. You can go through and understand. So they made train, 24-25 feet train, dragon, and then 20 feet backgrounds, and they use all the skills that they have learned. Lot of problem solving, lot of discussion, lot of sharing, a lot of planning. I should say that it's one single activity where we find all the children involved with the full energy, and at the end we can see the activity on the stage the best. So let me end this this talk with one note. Children do not learn for the sake of it, but for the fun. For it is fun and joyful. They acquire necessary skills and knowledge by engaging in meaningful, joyful, and challenging activities.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for giving me an opportunity for making a presentation right in front of the teachers all over India. I am right now sitting in Trivandrum. I am making a presentation about an organization which is located in the Vellanad village in Trivandrum district of Kerala. This institution has been conducting various development programs specifically on practice-based learning. All the activities connected to development are related with education, and we used to call it development education. So I am talking to you on education, specifically experiential learning, from the perspective of development. Currently, first let me tell you about Mitra Niketan. This is an institution. It's actually a community-based development organization founded in the year 1956. In fact, it is now we are in the 65th year of existence. Mitra Niketan is primarily engaged in education-based development activities since its inception. We have a campus of 50 acres which houses a variety of development activities in the field of education, agriculture, rural technology, and related rural development aspects. So all those things are taking place in a community itself. So we are giving more importance to community. In our community, in the 50 acres, about 500 members are living together, studying together, working together. It has been developed in the form of a community with the idea of giving more opportunity for informal learning. So we are giving importance for practical learning, informal learning, non-formal education and all. Our motto is basically community-based education in an education-based community, because the education is taking place in a community environment where there are a different target group, different types of people are involved in different activities, not just a school and school-based activities alone. So I am talking to you about education or experiential learning from the development perspective, because our organization is a rural development institution functioning since last 65 years. I would also like to tell you the history, brief background of Mitra Niketan. This institution, Mitra Niketan, is founded by a Gandhian social worker. His name is Vishwanathan. He is no more. He passed away in 2014. He studied in Shantiniketan in West Bengal in the 1950s. Actually, that is his basic inspiration to start Mitra Niketan, more or less in the form of a Shantiniketan. After graduating from Shantiniketan, in fact, he has voluntarily worked in Sevagram, Gandhiji's ashram in Sevagram, Wardha, where he spent about 6 months. That is another experience. Later on, he has visited a number of folk high schools in Scandinavian countries, especially in Denmark. You know, in Denmark, there are a large number of people schools are there. That is, they used to call it folk high school. In these folk high schools, especially during winter, they conduct a large number of courses, mostly for interacting between people, learning about the culture, learning skills and all those things. It is actually life-based education for the people in the People's College. That idea is also influenced Vishwanathan. Actually, the influence of Mahatma Gandhi, Tagore and Grundtvig. Grundtvig is the founder or founding father of folk high schools in Denmark. All those ideas has been culminated. That has inspired him to form this institution called Mitra Niketan. Mitra Niketan means home of friends. Vishwanathan also awarded Padma Shri in the year 1999 by the Government of India. So we are currently working in the 65th year as a secular institution. When we are working as a secular institution without political or religious support, there are a lot of challenges. With all these challenges, we are functioning. So primarily let me also tell you about our community. As I mentioned before, it is primarily an educational and social experiment. It is an educational and social experiment with programs designed to educate students and empower rural community and ultimately to promote rural development. That is the focus. That means we have started this, the idea is to engage in development activities, or our means of development is education, because we are primarily a development organization, but the means of our development is education, and we used to call that education as development education. The institution started in the year 1956 when Vishwanathan started with the supplementary education programs. Supplementary education programs primarily given to those school going children. The children in the nearby villages, after the school hours, we used to, Vishwanathan and a group of volunteers, they used to educate these children of those outside the formal system of education. That is the origin from which our school has been evolved over the years. Then in 1967, in fact, we have registered as a voluntary organization. After 1956, then in 1967 only, it started functioning legally as a voluntary organization with following the state norms and all. Our mission is primarily to promote rural leadership, because we are still working to promote rural leadership, because we believe that there need an active citizenship or active participation of the youth in the community. That is very important. Rather than everybody is learning and getting job engaged in their own activities, we motivate our youth to work in the community, participate in the community level activities also. So our mission is primarily to promote rural leadership through education. The means of promoting rural leadership is education. So our mission is to promote rural leadership through education for community development. So instead of, we can have a development through different forms, you can, mostly it can be done through welfare measures or providing other economic inputs and all those things. But the sustainable development is through actively promoting young people who has to actively work in the villages. That is the motto. We continue with that vision. Our vision is to visualize a community with active citizenship. So we are focusing on those people, but when we look at those people, our target group are mostly from the disadvantaged sections of the society. I will tell you about that. Let me go straight with the education activity ongoing in Mitra Niketan. The first and foremost activity is the school. We have a school which is the core of Mitra Niketan. Actually, we started with the supplementary education programs for those neighboring children. Now it has been started, it evolved in the form of a school. Our school is a residential school because we believe in community based education, for which day scholars are not suitable. So residential education has been established, in which mostly the tribal students are living and learning here. We have about 200 children on an average learning every year. All of them are living in Mitra Niketan. We have providing them board and lodging facilities, healthcare, education, clothing, all those support which required is given by Mitra Niketan. They are living in this joint family for all the 10 months of the year, because even in between they cannot go to their home back in the village in Wayanad and all, which is almost 600 kilometers away from Mitra Niketan. So it's a residential community and we promote the residential education. As far as the education is concerned, our school is recognized by the government of Kerala. It is a recognized school, but it is not aided. So once it is aided, we are becoming more and more formal. But here we are giving a balance between the academic courses as well as outside classroom education program. Equal importance is given both academic activities as well as outside classroom activities. We believe community and practice-based education is vital to individual development. As I mentioned, the school is not aided, so we have to raise funds to run the school. We impart formal education more or less on half of the time. Rest of the time is set apart for other experiential learning. Education involves the active participation of children in the daily life of the community, because we believe the active interaction of the students with other community members is very important. Especially those children coming from the tribal villages are normally shy and be inside the hostel or be inside the classroom. But here we expose them to different activities so that they can involve in community activities. They have opportunities to interact with a large number of people coming from outside for different purposes and all. So this involvement of the children in the daily life of the community is part of the experiential learning, part of the education for which we are giving importance. Here, as mentioned here, education is combined with the practical skills and academic knowledge. I will also tell you that we are not giving them homework or any other inputs. Those academic inputs are giving only in the classrooms. Otherwise, they are free and they participate in various activities, including sports, arts and yoga, drama and many other activities. But experiential learning we are giving is much more than that. Before that, let me also tell you about the target group. Our target group is not only just scheduled tribe students coming from different forest villages, but also the scheduled caste students. In addition to that, we have students coming from broken families, students from the single parents homes. So from the problem families they are coming. So their primary motive is not education. When the parents sending the children to the school, some of them are sending because of the poverty, some of them sending because of the safety measures. So all those things are combined. So here we are trying to provide them a safe environment like in their villages, rather than just placing them in a classroom. We don't have a school building as such. We don't have a school, but we have 10 classrooms spread around the campus like in Shantiniketan. So they are free. So they are naturally they are learning in the natural environment. These children generally do not like classroom teaching in a formal environment. That is one of the reasons why we have integrated, one of the reasons for integrating skill development and other activities in the daily life. They also contribute to the running of the community. Then one of the additional inputs we are giving is occasional training programs. Mitraniketan is a campus with a large number of infrastructure for training programs. We have a rural technology center. In the rural technology center is a training cum production center. It is actually meant for the young people. The rural technology center is engaged in vocational training, research related activities and production. We have a pottery unit, carpentry unit, coconut fiber, coir processing unit, weaving unit, fruit processing unit, bakery, tailoring, then plumbing, electrical carpentry. I mean, different sections are there. They are all engaged in training, at the same time production, training and service. So all these students will get opportunity at least 1 or 2 days in a week to engage in these vocational training programs, because most of these children after 10th standard, they are not going for higher education. Some of them, hardly 10% of the students go for higher education. Others will move to technical education. So this is one of the opportunities for them to learn basic skills of the different technologies or different vocational livelihood skills. So after learning, during the process of learning the skills, they will choose one of the skills in which they are interested. After the school education, they can get in more training, specific training on these different skills. Specifically let me take pottery. See, pottery is now one of the rare skills, traditional skills. We have all the infrastructure for it. Its advantage is that the children, they can be more creative, because there is no mold, there is no machine, nothing. It is, they can use only this pottery wheel. First they start clay with their hand, then they use pottery wheel. So it is creative. Each student is making a product, it is their own creative. So it is an opportunity for developing creativity among the children. In addition to that, we have this agriculture, for which we are giving specific importance. Agriculture, they are also producing part of the vegetables and fruits they required. In addition to that, we give more importance for paddy cultivation, because in Kerala, paddy cultivation is coming down. So the students, along with the teachers and the agriculture specialists, they start working in paddy fields. So from the process of land preparation onwards to harvesting, the students are involved, so that they learn by practice on paddy cultivation. Normally this is a rare opportunity the students in the school getting. So we aims that these children go back to home, engage in agriculture based activities. So they have the skills to start practice. In addition to that, they have the attitude to work with traditional jobs, traditional skills, and also production, because now the productivity is coming down. So we are motivated to, everybody is motivated to work in farm related activities. So this is very important as far as the students are concerned. Similarly, we are giving special importance for fruit processing. You know, there are plenty of fruits available in the villages. For example, let us take the case of jackfruit. Jackfruit is a seasonal fruit which is available in summer season, April, May, June and all. What happened is, this is one of the fruit which gives food supplement to the tribal people and the poor people, but mostly 50% of the fruit is get wasted. So what we can do is, we can process these fruits, we can value add these fruits, and this can be used. These technologies we are transferring to the students. So one of the skills which the students are learning, it's not only learning the skills, but this is part of the development. So they are back in the home, they have the skill to utilize these skills and supplement their income. This is the idea behind giving vocational skills. Of course, we are giving primary skills in carpentry, plumbing, electrical and all those things. So after school, they can get more further training in ITA or polytechnic, or working with a master craftsman. Then they will engage in daily work or contract work, and they can earn income. In addition to that, the specific skills like fruit and vegetable processing, agriculture are part of our rural development program, part of those sustainable development issues, in which we not only develop the skills of the students, the knowledge of the students, but also the right attitude, so that they are participating in the sustainable development process of our country. So this is one of the areas in which we are giving experiential learning to the students, and I would like to say that the students are more interested in these type of activities rather than the classroom activities. Of course, they are engaged in classroom activities, they are learning, but some of the students who are really weak in the classroom, but they perform very well outside the classroom in agriculture or in pottery or in the fruit processing or even in tailoring. Especially we have a lot of volunteers coming from abroad as part of their internship. Some of them are very skillful in art and craft. Some of our tribal students have the real skills in art, talents in art and craft. You know, with some sort of inputs and basic training, they come out very well. There are potential among these children from the disadvantaged families. If we give them opportunities, they will come out very well. Then education is also coupled with development. I mentioned earlier is education is coupled with work, specifically on livelihood development for a living. Here specifically we also couple education, our educational activities with development, aims at sustainable living habits. This is also very important. This is mainly for including or involving students in the judicious use of our natural resources, and also engage them in conservation practices. Specifically, we focus on water, soil and energy. You know, water is a scarce resources. In summer, mostly in most of the villages, people are suffering due to the scarcity of water. So water, we have a campus of 50 acre where currently we are self-sufficient with water, because in the campus we have developed an eco-campus program. In this ecological campus program, we have done a lot of work in water conservation. involving these students and also the community members of the Mitra Niketan, so that they know how to collect water. We for example, we are after rain, the water from Mitra Niketan campus will not run away. It will remain in different agricultural lands, in rain pits, and also the ponds and other agriculture water sources. So there are different techniques of harvesting and collecting water in which the students are involved, through not only through soil conservation but also through agroforestry activities, planting trees, especially fruit trees. We are giving more importance to earlier fully for planting trees. Now we focus on agroforestries, so that we also not only we get the wood and fodder from the tree, but also from the fruits are also getting from the tree. So agroforestry concept is also involved. These are all with the idea of giving orientation to the students to have a sustainable living habits. This is not only in the case of water conservation, but also biodiversity conservation, conserving different plants, especially rare plants and all. Similarly, in the field of energy is also one of the concerns now, we all know. But in India now, almost 80% of the people cooking using firewood. They are using different methods of cooking methods, in which they need hardly 20-30% of the firewood, but they are just burning 100% of the firewood. But there are different technologies and techniques like fuel efficient stoves and all those. If we use such new technologies, these are simple technologies, we can reduce the consumption of firewood. Similarly, different energy sources, we can train the children how to reduce the energy consumption. Example, biogas is another example. Such technologies we are introduced in our community as a model, in which not only youth, not only village women, but also the children are also involved, so that they can learn during their education these sustainable living practices. So the idea behind that is to impart sustainable development skills to the children for conserving natural resources through learning by doing. We are not only following this learning by doing skills, but also earning while doing. We are also training young people of above 18 years of age in our People's College. I will tell you about another education program called People's College, which is meant for the young people, where after training program we place the students as apprentices. During that time, during the training, they are not only getting training, but also they have an opportunity to earn. Not like as a worker, at least 50% of the earning a worker earns, outside the students will our young students will get. So some of such opportunities are also provided. So I am talking you the second major education project of Mitra Niketan. It is called Mitra Niketan People's College. This People's College is actually, as I mentioned before, it is a Danish model of folk high schools. In Denmark, currently it is not very popular. Earlier it was so popular, that idea of that folk high school has been adopted here, and we named it Mitra Niketan People's College. In this People's College, actually we meant youth, young people, as well as the rural women. The college aims at empowering rural youth and women. So we started the college in the year 1996. It is primarily it is a community college. The community college, we include or admit all the students, all the young people, irrespective of their age. I mean, most of them from 18 years to 30 years, we will enroll them. So irrespective of their age, educational qualification, their social background, we involve them in a 1-year program. We used to call that 1-year program as occasional cum personality development program. That is, we are imparting both vocational skills, livelihood skills and life skills. Half day is set apart for life skills and half day is set apart for livelihood skills. In the livelihood skills, they have opportunity to learn all those trades which I mentioned, like carpentry, plumbing, electrical and bakery and all. You know, in Kerala we have our minimum wage is 500. Nobody work below 500 rupees. So a skilled person in Kerala is getting now 850 to 1000 rupees. Even some of the masons and carpenters are charging 1200 rupees. So the young people with the skills immediately getting jobs, because we have scarcity of workers in Kerala. Almost 3 million workers from northern part of India is working in Kerala. Currently, due to corona issue and all, they are going back their home, but otherwise we have a shortage of manpower. So all those young people we trained have opportunity in Kerala, but the primary focus we are giving not only livelihood skills but also life skill, attitudinal change and all those things, in which includes, for example, we have no fixed syllabus. One newspaper is enough for one day's education. Newspaper reviews, storytelling, small group discussion, mock interviews, different activities in which they are fully involved. Our idea behind the People's College is we start, that is also a residential program in which we engage the students from morning 6 o'clock to evening 8 o'clock. We keep them fully engaged in different activities through which we are molding their personality as well as skills and knowledge. That is the People's College program which we are running. Many youth trained and working as skilled workers as well as social workers at different parts of Kerala. But today there is a change. We cannot run in that form today because most of the young people in Kerala now qualifies 12th year of schooling. So everybody, earlier we have a lot of school dropouts. Now there is no school dropout except some exceptional cases. Otherwise, no dropout. So all of them coming as our students in the People's College is qualified with the 12th VHSC or plus 2 students. For them, once they come, they ask who is certifying your courses. So certification is becoming important over the last 5-6 years. So we started changing. We started linking with, earlier we linked with Indira Gandhi National Open University, where Mitraniketan People's College is recognized as one of the community colleges. Currently we linked with, associated with Tata Institute of Social Sciences, which is a deemed university. We are one of the hub partners of Tata Institute of Social Sciences, and we are conducting 2 different courses of the Tata Institute of Social Sciences. One is a diploma in geriatric care, that is the occasional skill development in the social sector. The second one is a 3-year degree program which is introduced based on the change in the need of the people, that is called BOC, Bachelor of Vocation, in which we have taken up agriculture program because we have a lot of opportunities for practical skills, because we have taken up this BOC from Tata Institute mainly because it has a flexibility and about 50 to 60% time has been given for practical learning. So when we have 30 to 60 hours of theoretical learning in one particular subject called horticulture, we have 260 hours set apart for a practical learning. That is why that program has been introduced. So we have about 100 students learning in 3 batches in BOC, Bachelor of Vocation in Agriculture. So that is a change which we made, and also we give opportunities for internship. There are a large number of All Indias and students from the universities coming to Mitraniketan for voluntary work and internship. Those students and their knowledge and skills are also used to exchange with our local students, so that both of them will learn from each other. The concept of the People's College is primarily we used to call it education for life. That means a life-oriented education is being imparted. Now let me come to the output. Later I will also answer to the questions. We have a few number of questions because already half an hour. I will answer to your questions one by one after giving the output, because you might be interested in the output of this experiential program. Mitraniketan's educational experience primarily proved that practical learning programs develop the skills and knowledge of the children more quickly than mere academic learning. That is our understanding from the beginning onwards. Especially at least some 20-25% of the students are not at all interested in classroom education, though they are involved in the process, but they very quickly learn in practical based activities. That is one of the things, so that we are sustaining our education program with all those children from the lower strata because of this very well integration between these work and study. Similarly, we do not have any dropout. Normally, back in the village, these students, tribal villages, the dropout rate is very high. But in Kerala now it has come down because government and many other agencies has taken a very good effort to reduce the dropout rate. And another thing is all these students are very active in the community, interacting with all other people back in their community as well as in the Mitra Niketan community. That is one of the positive changes. And also most of these children, when we go from Mitra Niketan to the school, they learn, they have more than one skills. That means they have learned multiple skills. So they can choose to specialize. We found that many children are engaged in multiple skills and engaged in more than one number of jobs. As I mentioned, one of the primary output which we found is the children are more interested in outside classroom activities. They are engaged in not only livelihood skill related activities but also in other development activities. And we found that in our education program there is no dropout at all. And currently those students who are learning here or studying here are actually the children of the first generation who studied in Mitra Niketan school. And third, I was mentioning that they are active in the Mitra Niketan community as well as they are very active in their local community. And we found that they are engaged in skilled jobs, especially they are working with the forest department, and some of them are very well come up successful as nurses and teachers, and some of them are working with Mitra Niketan itself. And we are very happy to tell you that in most of the panchayat in these areas, our students or panchayat members are engaged in social work. We could establish the link of work and education as well as development and education. That is one of the output I just wanted to mention. Both are important. Linking education with work as well as linking education with development is also very important. In addition to that, this process is able to promote dignity of labor through their participation in productive work, because they are not learning from the workshops, but they are learning in the real production centers. So training come production centers, in which actually 60% of the focus is for production, because as an NGO we have to sustain. For sustaining, to paying for the staff and buying raw materials and all, we have to generate income from the workshop itself. So production come training center is the concept. It is a very good lab for the students. And we have, of course, we have a lot of challenges. As I mentioned, running such an institution, funding is a major problem, and currently there are a lot of problems for funding, and we have to raise ourselves, because the government is normally motivating, let NGOs raise funds for themselves, there is no grant. With this corona situation, it is more true. And we are in the process of, on the one hand, raising funds, on the other hand we should sustain all these activities. And I think now we have a question I have written down, how to come to Mitra Niketan, isn't it? Yeah, what the first question is how to come to Mitra Niketan campus. Mitra Niketan campus is, Mitra Niketan is in Kerala. It is located in Trivandrum district. That is the most southern district in India. The two southern districts in India is, one is Kanyakumari and one is Trivandrum. From Trivandrum railway station or airport, Mitra Niketan is just 25 kilometers. You can come by 3-wheeler or a prepaid taxi, or if you inform us, we will also pick you. We have a facility for staying here. We have a guest house, and we have facilities for conducting education workshops. We have a facility for accommodating more than 100 people at a time. So there are a large number of workshops has been taken place here. The next question is, why government is not implementing experiential learning from school to higher education level? So this is a good policy question. See, the thing is, I mentioned first itself, our school is aided. Our school is a recognized school but not aided school. We have not tried for getting aid from the government of Kerala, because once we get aid from the government, then we have to work more or less based on the government stipulation. Then we don't have that much flexibility. Here at this point of time, we have a lot of flexibility to engage the students in lot of experiential learning, real life learning. That is one of the things. Once we connect with the government, then there are a lot of restrictions. But now there is change in vocational skill training programs. Vocational skill training programs conducted by the government now last, and government is now trying to link with the industries. Actually, our vocational training programs, Government of India now initiated is with the different clusters. For example, industrial clusters, health clusters, all those sectors, it is industries need-based manpower development is taking place. So in India, the changes are started taking place. Of course, your concern on experiential learning is coming up. Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.